now, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his New Year message to Nigerians, has cautioned that the coming election is not a do-or-die affair.
Yes, indeed. And he also said that the election coming up in the next 45 days would be free, fair and credible. However, he did not address the country in a broadcast, but through a press statement. Well, joining us now is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Good morning and thanks for joining us, and a Happy New Year to you, Mr. Femi Adesina.
Femi Adesina. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year to Nigerians.
All right.
All right, first off, let's begin with the fact that the President did not make any New Year speech to Nigerians. Don't you think at a time like this, with all the prevailing situation, and of course it's an election year, that Nigerians really would have loved to hear from their president?
Well, maybe you didn't quite get the historical background of New Year well. We didn't used to have broadcast on New Year Day, even in previous governments. Broadcasts will come May 29, it will come October 1, and maybe some other special days. Since this government came in 2015, there was no broadcast on January 1, 2016. There was none on January 1, 2017. It was only last year that there was an exception to the rule, and that was because of the situation in the country. And part of it was that, you know, the president had been away for most of 2017, and then he had to make a broadcast on January 1, 2018. So the broadcast of January 1, 2018 was an exception rather than the rule. If you look at all other administrations, we didn't used to have January 1 broadcast, rather we had messages to the country. Particularly under the military, January 1 was the day they unfolded the budget. So January 1 was not usually a day for national broadcast.
All right, let's get into the message the message by the president to Nigerians. A part of it is basically on the papers, almost all the papers this morning, saying that the election for 2019 will not be a do-or-die affair, a message that resonates well with most Nigerians. But when we look at the messages from the ruling party, from the opposition party, Nigerians are still saying that it is still the same way it was many years ago in 2015, where people mustling in and all of that are not discussing the real issue and not campaigning on the real issue. And we expect that the ruling party, which came up with a lot of goodwill and a lot of support, should have upped their game in this.
We are, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the government is part of the muslinging. I think rather it's coming from the opposition, and not all the opposition, but rather the People's Democratic Party. They are the one who try to cavil and find fault with every little thing. Anything that is done or that is said, they turn it upside down. They just want to kick like a wild horse. So the government is not involved in that.
Wow.
They were the ones who promised an issue-based campaign, but they are not keeping to their words. As far as the government is concerned, and I can speak a little bit for the governing party, the All Progressive Congress, we will stay on issues, and we will not throw mud like they are doing.
It's interesting that you say you will stay on issues. Exactly what issues are these? Because it looks like deja vu. This administration promised to, tackle the security challenges, of course, fix the economy and fight corruption. And it's still on those three planks that it plans to go into the election in February. The PDP actually said, there's really no need for this president to make a New Year's speech, because after all, it's same old, same old. There's really nothing new that's happening. Is it a case of the president, actually falling into the hands of the PDP? The PDP's claim that there's really nothing to report on.
But the PDP does not have a sense of history. if they had, they would know that there are no usually broadcasts on January 1. The days
yeah, you made that point. You made that point already.
Yes,
but don't you think
and I'm
that
building up.
Don't you think that at a time like this, in an election year, that it becomes even more important for Nigerians to hear from the president, what he has planned for them going forward, especially with the prevailing security situation?
Unless you are telling me that that statement which the president personally signed does not amount to hearing from the president. The statement that you have, comprehensive, was personally signed by the president. Does it not amount to hearing from the president?
What are the key things that the president has said in that statement that should reassure Nigerians?
It's in the public domain already. It's in the public domain. In fact, since last evening it had been released. He had talked about 2019 being a decisive year, a significant year for Nigeria because it's an election year. And he has said there was no need for all this doomsday feeling about the coming election because the government will do what is fair, what is just, and what is necessary for free and fair polls. And then he told those who are of negative minds about the election that his word was his bond. And we know this president. When he tells you something, you may as well take it to the bank. He has said the elections will be free and fair, and that is what we will have. And then he talked about the economy, he talked about peace, he talked about security, he talked about national issues generally. And he assured that the resources of Nigeria will be used for Nigerians.
All right.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I think it was effective and efficient enough.
Yeah, Femi, one thing the president mentioned in the message was transforming the potential state of Nigeria to an actualizing state. We have always talked about the fact that Nigeria has so much potentials, whether in human resources, in natural resources. We have always remained a potential and a potential country. And talking about moving into an actualizing country or status, as the case may be, what are these strategies? Because the point there is Nigerians are still saying that we know that there has been a deficit in almost every aspect of endeavor in Nigeria. But 3 years into this government, they expect to see some level of transformation. Certainly, it wouldn't be a total transformation, but some level of transformation, which Nigerians are still hoping to see more of.
3 years is not what it takes. 3.5 years going to 4 is not what it takes to rebuild a country. A country that has been pillaged, a country that has been despoiled, like Nigeria was done under 16 years of PDP. 3.5 years is not what it takes to rebuild that country. In fact, at the end of the 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari, God willing, the job will still continue. He will take it up to a point, and succeeding administrations will continue to do it as long as they are not administrations that will come to pillage the country like we saw in 16 years of the PDP. It's work in progress. For instance, the administration promised to diversify the economy. Don't we see that as work in progress? We see what Agric is doing. We see what Mines and Steel Development is doing now. We see manufacturing getting attention in Nigeria. So that tells you that something new is happening in this country, and it will continue.
How much hope, then, would you offer Nigerians with the figures that are out there? 20.9 million Nigerians are unemployed, and some would tell you that this is just a conservative figure and that Nigeria is now the poverty capital of the world. Then you have, ASU on strike. The, tertiary education is at a standstill right now. Of course, ASOP also is on strike, and Labour is threatening to go on strike on January 8th if the 30,000 naira minimum wage bill is not, transmitted to the National Assembly. Within all of this, how much hope can you offer to Nigerians that there is really cause to remain optimistic in 2019?
Yes, hope is what keeps the people going. In fact, Alexander Pope, the poet, said, hope beats eternal in the human breast. If you enter a new year and you are entering it without hope, then the next thing is despair, is despondency. And we know that despair and despondency can have very many negative consequences. So, we have every reason to be hopeful because we have a government that we can trust. We have a government that has said that all the resources of the country are going to be utilized for the people. We have a country that is rebuilding. We have a government that is rebuilding the country, rebuilding infrastructure, and correcting all the ills of the past. I don't think there is any cause for despondency in the country. There is cause to share in the hope that the president has brought to Nigerians through the statement released for the new year. And talking of the rush of strikes and threats of strikes, those people need to know that this is our country. They say, as you lay your bed, so shall you lie on it. If you want to turn the society head down a few weeks to election, it's our country.
All right, Femi, let me bring on the issue of security. This has been one headache in the, I guess, even headache on government, headache on Nigerians as to how things are going, not just in the northeast, in Zamfara, north central, and other parts of the country. The ISSA came up with a report recently, which although the government has rejected, saying that corruption within the military is part of the reason why the fight against Boko Haram is not coming to an end.
Yeah, but you know, I don't speak for the military. And I think there has been effective response to that. I speak for the president. I don't speak for the military. Those who speak for the military have responded to that effectively.
Yeah, but your principal is the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yes, but I say things he has discussed with me, what he has shared with me, and that is not something we have discussed at all. And with the military having responded, I think that suffices.
Are you saying there are no plans to investigate thoroughly these claims on the part of ISSA about corruption at the top military echelon? Now, let's talk about the issue of cabal in the presidency, which has been talked about.
Well, but you asked a question, you didn't give me the opportunity to answer.
Go ahead,
that, please. Will it be investigated?
Yes.
How many key officials of the military are on trial today in the country? Because misdeeds of the past were investigated. And if misdeeds of the past were investigated, if there are misdeeds now, what makes you think they won't be investigated? But when you investigate military things, you don't do them in public glare because they are security issues. But I can assure you, if there's any untoward happening, of course, it's like murder, and they say murder will out. If there are misdeeds, they will be revealed, and adequate measures will be taken.
Okay, there are claims from a very, very important, personality that there is a cabal. As a matter of fact, it was narrowed down to two people who are the ones who will not allow this president to deliver on his promises. The issue of cabals have always been there, not only in this administration, but even in past administrations. Can you reassure Nigerians that there is no such thing going on?
On Christmas Day, the president himself spoke about that. And when the president speaks, that's the highest authority in the land. No need to add, no need to subtract. He said he doesn't know of any cabal, that he was the one who went around the country to canvass for votes. Over 15 million Nigerians gave him their votes, and he has the mandate to now lead them. He doesn't know of any cabal, neither do I. And with the president having responded, I think that should lay the matter to rest.
All right, let's come back to this issue of strikes going on. How concerned the government is certainly one would say, well, government will not have strike and will not be concerned. But what are the strategies? Because all of this rubs off on the government, as government not being able to handle this or handle that, or government inaction one way or the other. What is the government doing to the issue of the strike and the looming strike by the labor union on one hand, and the ongoing strike by the ASU and ASU?
Okay, you know that negotiations have been on. And at a point, it was ASU that walked out on that negotiation, and it said it will not come to the negotiation table again. Even when wars are fought, most wars end around the negotiation table. So the negotiation, I believe, should continue, and there must be reason. You can't close your mind to reason. That is the way to get out of the impasse. ASU has a demand running into about 800 billion naira. The government, a couple of weeks back, released 20 billion naira as a first installment. They rejected it, saying it was like a drop in the ocean. The government has unfolded budget 2019, which it can't even fund fully now. But the oil price benchmark was given at $60 per barrel. As at last week, oil prices fell as low as $54, and I think it even got to $49 per barrel at a point.
Yes.
You can't even fund the budget. So where do you get 800 billion to give ASU at one fell swoop so that they can return to the classroom? I think reason has to prevail, and something that is acceptable must be fashioned out so that they can return to work.
It's interesting you raise the issue.
Also for any other interest group that is threatening to go on strike. If the money is not there, the money is simply not there.
Yeah, but when it came to the issue of the organized labor, agreements had been reached, and all of this, all the parties were involved, and all the needed signatures were appended. So at this point now, government or governors saying that they may not have what it takes to go ahead. What signal does that send?
When you said agreements have been reached, I wouldn't use that word.
Okay.
I would rather say recommendations have been made, not agreements reached, because the final authority on those recommendations is still government. So recommendations were made. A tripartite committee was set up to work on a new minimum wage, and it made recommendations. And recommendations were given to government. And President said, yes, we will look at these recommendations. And in his last budget speech, he promised that a technical committee will now be set up to advise government on how it can arrive at a sustainable minimum wage for the country. So the fact that recommendations were made does not mean that it is cast in concrete. Government will still look at it and look at what can be paid on a sustainable basis.
Yeah, but Labour believes that government is not entirely sincere, that it's only just buying time on the issue of the national minimum wage. But let's talk about corruption. It is a major plank on which this administration actually stands. And a lot of people observing both within and outside Nigeria have been, they've not given this government the kind of pass mark that you expect in the fight against corruption. They've said over and over again it's been one-sided, and as a matter of fact that the war against corruption has fallen flat on its face. And yet corruption, the war against corruption is still a major issue on the mind of this administration as it goes into the 2019 election.
In any given society, particularly in a society of 196 million people like we have in Nigeria, there will always be cynics, there will be skeptics, there will be people who see nothing good in anything. But it doesn't change the reality. It doesn't change the facts on ground. Just last week, EFCC unfolded 312 convictions it has recorded in recent times. Yet, cynics will say there is no anti-corruption war. Skeptics will say the war has fallen flat. I'll just challenge those cynics and skeptics to please put their hands on corruption so that they can test whether the war is alive or not.
Let me quote what the running mate of the PDP, Peter Obi, the running mate to the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar said, you know, you don't close shop and fight corruption, that it is a wrong strategy as far as he's concerned. And of course, a lot of people too have raised the issue of the trader money. They're saying trader money is corruption by another name. That 24 billion naira spent on trader money and, you know, distributing 10,000 naira to traders all across the country amounts to nothing but vote buying.
Thank you. Two issues there. You talked about closing the shop to fight corruption. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo responded to that at that same forum, the debate. He said, if you allow corruption to steal all the inventory in the shop, there would even be no shopping at the end of the day. So that already takes care of what former Governor Peter Obi said. You don't close the shop to fight corruption, but leave your shop and let corruption thrive. At the end of the day, there will be no shop again, not to talk of goods in the shop. Because corruption will not only steal the goods, it will steal the shop itself. Then the second one, trader money. There is no bad time for a good thing. Trader money is a good thing for Nigerians at that rung of the ladder. They appreciate it. And this is the time for it to be done. If anybody says, well, it is too close to election, there is no bad time to do a good thing. Trader money is a good thing. The money is appropriated. Do you know that for the social investment project, you have 500 billion in the budget? So if anybody is mentioning a figure, it's money that has been appropriated for that purpose.
How do you
they
then,
are just green with envy.
How do you measure the success of trader money at the end of the day? If you disburse 24 billion naira to, you know, the local trader all across Nigeria, how do you measure the success of that?
I can't authenticate that figure. I can't say 24 billion has been spent. Those in charge of the social investment program can authenticate what has been spent so far, particularly on trader money. But all I can say is that the people, the beneficiaries of trader money are happy. And the intention of government is to bring happiness to the greater number of Nigerians. So trader money is succeeding. It is better to make the people happy, to empower them, than to pocket that money yourself, like we have seen in the 16 years of PDP in this country.
Yeah, but staying on the trader money, there is a reason government is trying to give this monies to the traders. And the question my colleague Ngozi is asking is, how do you ensure that this monies you're giving to them is not used for burial or is used for the reason why they're meant for? Because it's meant to empower in the first place.
There is a structure. There is a structure to it. Money is not just being thrown from markets. There is a structure to it. When you get the initial 10,000, you are expected to repay it. When you repay it, you get 15,000. When you repay that, you can get 20,000. It's an incremental thing. The impression people give, people who are critical, is that money is just being thrown at people. It has a structure. There is documentation.
So what is the Femi, what is the consequences if any trader who can't pay this money is back? What then?
Well, that such trader forfeits an opportunity to get more money.
No consequences.
And if you know traders,
no consequences.
Well, wait. If you know traders, they want to utilize that money and get more money so that their trade can boom. So a lot of them will use it well. For those who don't use it well, I am sure that there are devices already built into the scheme to take care of that.
All right, let's go to the issue of human rights. This administration seems not to have scored very well as far as Amnesty International is concerned and other bodies both within and outside Nigeria. What exactly will change as far as human rights is concerned in 2019. I mean, people would point to the fact that it seems that this administration has no respect for the rule of law, and when the court gives a verdict, it does not respect it. The case of Sambo Dasuki is there, and of course, the IMN leader, El Zakzaki, are pointers to that effect. How does this administration plan to change that narrative, at least the perception?
Well, that question should go to the Attorney General of the Federation, and I know that he has responded to it a number of times. He can still respond to it if you get across to him. As far as the government is concerned, is doing its level best in cases of respect for rule of law, in cases of human rights and all that. But the Attorney General of the Federation will be in a better position to respond to that question.
All right, before I let you go, just this one question. The budget for 2019 has been transmitted to the National Assembly and is predicated on the oil benchmark of $60 as well as a production output of 2.3 million barrels per day. But right now, from where we stand, the price of oil is going down to about 51, be hovering around the $50 to $53, and OPEC is cutting Nigeria's output to about 1.6 to 1.7 million barrels per day. One would say that, in fact, the Senate President has said that the 2019 budget is not a workable instrument.
Well, budgets by their nature are projections. They are not final figures. And of course, that is why it has to go through the National Assembly, who will then look at it and appropriate. So if the very basis of the income is not tenable again, if you pegged oil prices at $60 per barrel, and already before the budget is even considered, oil has dropped to 50-something, and if it remains consistently at that level, then the benchmark has to be reviewed. That is what it means.
All right.
All right. Of course,
manufacturers... But that does not then mean, it does not then mean that it is an unworkable budget.
Okay.
Budgets are projections, which are fine-tuned.
Thank you very much, Mr.
according
Femi,
to arising issues.
Mr. Femi Adesina, of course, Senior Special Advisor to the President on Media. And speaking about those budget assumptions, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has said there's a need for government to review those assumptions. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast this morning on the first day of January 2019.